Hey, thank you very much for joining us live. My name is Jim Becker, and we have a special guest here today, and we're talking about a certain organization, association, if you will. And we're talking about the TIA, the Transportation Intermediaries Association. And today we have none other than the President and CEO, Anne Reinke. How about it? How are you, Reinke? How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me on, Jim. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Anne, and so nice to have you on. And you're new to this position, are you not?
I am. So I started in October. I had just come from the US Department of Transportation. I was there for about 18 months. And prior to that, don't hold this against me, Jim, but I worked for a railroad for 16 years. I worked for CSX. I was the head of their government affairs and DC office.
Yeah, I heard that, and it was pretty nice to see your great resume. It's a great resume to bring on for all of us members, and I think we're in the area of what 1,200 members or more.
Yeah, so right now we have a little bit, almost 1,400 members. And for those who don't know what an intermediary is, we are sort of what I call the center of the supply chain. We connect, on the one hand, the shipper, the maker of goods and products, and the receiver or the carrier, so the truck, the railroad, the ocean going vessel. And we connect them by knowing them through relationships, aggregating capacity, for example. So we may have access to tens of thousands of trucks that the shippers may not know, and we have access to tens of thousands of shippers that our carriers may not have access to. And so we represent, as I said, almost about 1,400 of them, and they can be very small operations, one or two person operations that are family run, minority owned, women owned, up to multi-billion dollar companies, the big guys that we've all heard about. And so we represent all various ranges of companies from the very small to the very big.
Well, I do have to say, being an intermediary myself and being in business now for 24 years, I know there's times from when we were smaller to now being a mid-size and definitely larger organizations, we all have problems, concerns in transportation. There's always a problem. And there's times we don't know where to go to. And you guys have been there through thick and thin over the last 24 years, especially when I was just starting out. So tell us a little bit what the TIA does for the smaller to mid-size businesses, and how can you help once they become a member?
Sure. So, and Jim, I'm going to turn it back onto you after I finish as to why you joined. But so we do a number of things really well. One is we advocate for our members on Capitol Hill. We are their voice. And particularly small and medium-sized operations, they don't have a lobbyist. They don't have enough money to get someone on retainer to represent their interests. So in that case, we are their voice. Now, we also advocate, for every company, but in particular situations, we act as their lobbyist, their advocate on the Hill. We train and we educate our members. So some of our larger companies may have their own education operation. But again, those smaller to medium-sized companies may need to rely on outside resources, and we provide it, from teaching people how essentially to be a broker from our new broker success program, to teaching them how to kind of accelerate their career by certifying them as a transportation broker, the so-called CTB program, which is kind of our gold star of excellence of as you reach the midpoint of your career. And then we also provide a networking opportunities for companies that want to learn more. Maybe they don't understand a certain situation, so they'll get exposed to members who have been there before and provide best practices to them. So we provide that networking operation. And finally, we protect and safeguard our members' financial and business interests through what we call our TIA watchdog, our bond program, and our services program. Again, when companies aren't fully scaled up, they're going to need outside resources, and we provide them for them.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't have said that any better. And,
Jim, yeah. So my question, why did you join?
so I was a small broker, not really knowing what's going on. And I think I grew from, I think it was like 4 people to like 7 people. And I'm like, all right, I don't know about this and I don't know about this. I was a blank slate, if you will. and I really knew I didn't know, right? So when you know you don't know, you start looking. And someone said, well, did you take a look at the TIA? I'm like, yeah, I saw a couple of things that they offer. And they're like, well, have you gone to a convention? I said, no. And I knew about the CTB, certified transportation broker certificate that you can go through and be educated on and learn the ins and outs and all the details. And, but I never been to a convention. And let me tell you, the moment I walked into my first convention, wow.
Yeah.
I looked around and there was like 300 people there. I'm like, this is a lot of people. And we're all in transportation. We're in freight. These are people. These are my brethren. I'm like, this is great. So when I went in there, I still have relationships that I found at that first convention. And I have to say, the last convention I went to, I think we had like 1,200 people. So they've grown in size. And next week is your guys' convention, and it's online. So I'll be there, which is great. But I would say deep down inside, when you're faced not knowing what to do in transportation, or you have these areas and you don't have the resources to hire the team to help you, you have the time though to get away to go to a convention, or you have the amount of money to join an organization, an association, go ahead and do that and be exposed to all the materials and all the direction. And your staff, I mean, your staff is solid. And anytime I needed something, you guys were right there for me. And the opportunity of lobbying, I've been to DC so many times with you and your staff, walking the halls of Congress, walking the halls of the Senate, and actually sitting down and participating in questions or leading a group trying to get a certain bill passed. And when you really get that opportunity to see what that's like, it's amazing. And you guys provide that, as well as being able to contribute to a PAC and being able to really push bills through to make a difference in the world. It's awesome.
Well, thank you. And the advocacy piece in particular, we've always said that members of Congress couldn't possibly know every issue that they need to know. How could they? How can you expect them to do so? So you've got to be up there representing who you are. And it's easier in a way for a congressional office to deal with one voice and understand sort of the landscape of issues with which we're all operating as members. So yeah, we appreciate that, chat, of course. Thank you.
Absolutely. I mean, you guys, I can remember, you got me going back now to being a smaller broker. I'm going, I remember doing a co-broker agreement with a friend of mine, and he had his own brokerage business. And I said, okay, yeah, let's do a co-broker. And I'm like, okay, well, I don't have a contract. Oh, the TIA, here, I have a contract, and called you guys up. You guys provided it, and, pretty solid, because you guys also retain your own attorneys to really help writing these contracts to help all of your members.
You're exactly right. You're exactly right.
It's huge. And, the carrier framework. Tell us a little bit about the carrier framework that the TIA put together.
Well, I'm glad you asked, because we just issued I think it's the 19th version. Is it the 19th or the 14th? Anyway, it's the umpteenth version, been updated to reflect changes in the law, changes in hours of service regulations. And essentially it provides guidance for our members on what to think about when they are selecting a carrier. And so, we have our own ethical pledge that we as members follow. So we want to make sure that our carriers also have the reputation that makes, our customers happy, that they themselves have a track record of safe operations. We want to make sure that this is a relationship that we will go back to, that we will turn to frequently and count on as we continue to help our shippers get the products where they need to go to their final destination. And so much of that, there's a lot of things to think about. And again, when you're not fully scaled up and you don't have a retinue of lawyers poring over every single transaction or every single relationship, it's very helpful that we can provide that resource that you can say, all right, now I know what I'm looking for.
You nailed it on the head there. I love it. You mentioned watchdog. Now, I know there's problems that happen in transportation. Maybe a carrier doesn't get along with a broker, or a broker has a problem with a carrier. Tell us a little bit about the Watchdog program and what type of benefit does that give us as members?
Right. So members essentially get access to the TIA Watchdog, which provides notices when a certain carrier, a certain broker who is not a member, have a complaint against them. And the reason it's helpful is what I just said before, that if you want your business to keep coming back to you, if you want your shippers to keep coming back to you, if you want your carriers to keep coming back to you, you need to know with whom you're doing business. And so you want to make sure with whomever you're doing business that they are operating as ethically and safely as possible. And so having the TIA Watchdog provides you that kind of comfort that you can look through and see who's on there, and really it makes you feel better about who you ultimately decide to choose.
Yeah, it really gives you that peace of mind that we're all looking for. We're all trying to do a really good job, do a good business, educate our staff, and be there for our customers. And you're really there for the members as well as the customers and shippers and carriers as we're moving forward.
Well, and you know this, that technology is critical for everyone's business, and it's really making the difference for our members as they grow and change and sort of prosper. But relationships are the bread and butter. And so to the extent the TIA Watchdog helps you in that regard, that TIA, the membership and participation in TIA helps you in that regard, that's what we're here for, because you're only as good as you say, really, as your last transaction. And so you want to make sure that your reputation always stays sacrosanct to the extent you can. And that's what we're here to do to help.
Absolutely. And once again, just a shout out to your staff. They're always there and really, helping us. Anytime that I have ever had a question, just calling you guys out there in Virginia, DC, to really get our questions answered, or even on the chain. When people have questions, we throw it out there, or we throw it to you, and then you throw it out to the masses. And our answers are, the answers are out there. It's just, we don't know what they are because we're limited. And you're able to get that out by bringing the whole cohort together collectively as one.
Right. And we have, as you're alluding to, something called TIA Connect, which allows our members to go online, ask a question, and then to the extent our staff can facilitate, oh, we know someone who could answer that question, we can throw it out to the membership and say, hey, fortunately, we've all lived long enough. There are no new problems, really. So there's probably been someone who's dealt with it in the past, and a member can help. And the best thing about our members is, Jim, since you've been a member for a long time, is they are so generous with their help. They're so eager to try to improve and help you as to the extent they can. This is a generous, sort of loving and touchy group, which is why you said we're hybrid next week. It's killing us all. We all want to be together. We will be together again. Our last two meetings, the policy fly-in and our Technovations or 3PL Extend, are going to be in person later this year. So not to deter anyone, we are excited about next week. The hybrid conference is going to be terrific, but we all want to be close again.
Absolutely. And we're a close group,
right?
We're shaking, we're hugging. We're like, hey, long time no see, especially being, locked up for so long during this whole pandemic. It's been kind of crazy, but we've managed. We definitely have managed with the work from home policies.
That's great. That's great.
So that's great that we have some things coming up. Can you tell us a little bit how we can be together next week on this online convention that you guys have going on? How can people register for that?
Sure. So I'm glad you asked. So you could go to tianet.org. As soon as you get onto the website, there's a little Jim, you're the techno guy. It's a little banner. There you go. A banner that comes up that you can click on to register. And let me tell you a couple of the things that we're going to have. So we have Admiral McGraven. I don't know if you've ever heard him speak. He was actually on 60 Minutes a couple weeks ago. His leadership style, talk about someone who gives of himself, a true servant leader. He's the guy who said, make your bed first thing that you'd want to do, right? So we're hearing from him on Thursday. We're so excited about that. We also have some special announcements, which I won't tell you about yet, but some special announcements about how TIA is giving back to the transportation community. So we're very excited about that. We have, our transportation topic. Seth Clevenger is going to talk about the 50 top brokerages for the year. So we've got a lot that we're excited about that we're going to hear from it. And of course, we have our outgoing chairman, Brian Evans, and our incoming chairman, Mike Riccio, who are going to talk to us as well. So it's going to be phenomenal. Now, I will say with the virtual platform, this, people tend to multitask, right? Yep. You could admit it to me, Jim. It's okay.
Yeah, we do. We give up listening and we multitask. That's exactly what people do.
Right. So we're trying to really contain the content from about 4 hours, 3 days. And we think that that's going to be the sweet spot where people don't have to commit their entire day, because we know they can't, but that they can pay attention for that period, that sort of block of time. Now, that means we don't have as many sessions as we typically would, but you mentioned the pandemic. Last year, we were able to pivot some of our learning, our education, our content into virtual learning. So we still have virtual learning that we will continue to do.
Well, that's great. That's just awesome. And, the stuff that you guys do has been fantastic. And the TIA has been as strong, if not stronger than it ever has been. And stepping into all of this and really leading, it really takes a strong person to do that. And you're the right person. So we do appreciate that leadership that you do provide.
Well, Jim, but you mentioned our staff. I would have been lost without them. So, I'm not a hero leader. I want to collaborate. I want to understand from my subject matter experts what their history is, what our outreach has been, what our practices have been. And sure, we may not continue all of that. We will change. I'm a new leader, but if I didn't have them, I wouldn't know how to reach out and to learn and to grow. And one thing the pandemic has been good for, in a way, is that I've been able to talk to people like you, to members all across the country with just the click of a Zoom button, as opposed to having to fly out to various places. I mean, I can't wait to do that. And I have done some regional visits, but the fact that I've been able to talk to as many people as I can, and that means I can still sort of understand and grow and rely on my staff as well. If I had just been traveling, I don't know if I'd even really had time to listen to them. And I really have learned so much about them, and they are awesome.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, you got a great team there, which is great. And you're welcome out here at our flagship corporate, Glendale Heights, Illinois, anytime. So next time you're in the Chicagoland area, let us know.
Okay, I'll do it.
The other thing I really wanted to bring up is politics, right? The thing you're not supposed to talk about. There's a lot going on the Hill, right?
Right.
And there's a PAC, and the TIA, you guys are fighting the fight. The staff really knows how to maneuver through the whole political scene out there. Tell us a little bit about what's going on, what bills are coming up, what bills are we really getting ground and traction on, and what's going on. Give us a little insight to that if you can.
Sure. So, and I'm glad you mentioned the PAC too. So one of the PAC pitches, that's our political action committee, is that you may not like politics, because right now it seems fairly toxic, but regardless of where you fall on the political divide, if you're red or blue or purple, we are pragmatists at the end of the day, and we need to be out there so that members of Congress understand who we are. And so we'll use whatever tool is available in our toolkit, and the Political Action Committee is one of those tools. So of course we go up on the Hill and we meet with staff, well, virtually go up on the Hill right now, but we go up and meet with staff, but also we want to have opportunities to have additional FaceTime with members of Congress. And so that's what the PAC provides us. It never provides a guaranteed outcome. It provides us an ability to at least have our message heard. And so Chris Burrows does a great job. We have a new incoming chair, Ken Clark, who has a lot of energy and enthusiasm. Sue Spiro was our prior PAC chair, and she has been awesome. We have a lot of great investment and engagement from our members. But in terms of the Hill, so a couple things that we're working on. This is a piece of legislation, Jim, that you're almost brutally familiar with, which is the Motor Carrier Safety Selection Standard. As you probably know, 85% of the carriers out there are never rated, right?
Right.
So when you're a broker and you're trying to pick a carrier, yes, we have our carrier selection framework, but that's just an outline. We don't necessarily, as brokers, have all the data to know which is the best carrier to choose, particularly if 85% of them are unrated. And so what we're calling for is, let's have a little bit of more certainty in the marketplace. So yes, let's give them a thumbs up. Are they safe? Are they, ethical? Are they doing what they're supposed to do? Or are they thumbs down where they're not? And that's really all we're asking for, is a little bit of certainty. Right now, that certainty doesn't exist. There's confusion. And so what happens is some of our members get caught up in negligent selection lawsuits. And how could they possibly know what they were doing was negligent? There is no set standard right now. So that's what we're asking for. We're getting a lot of good traction. We hope to get a bill introduced later this week. I'll let you know, Jim, fingers crossed, maybe by next week we can announce it. And then one of the other things that we're working on is we want to be part of the CTPAT program, which is the Customs and Trade and Terrorism program, which essentially would allow us to have a seat at the table so that when incoming freight, when incoming freight comes in from other countries, there are various stakeholders who are there to say, this is a known traveler, this is an entity that we trust, these are shipments that we need, whatever the issue is, we don't have a seat at that table. And so we've been trying for many years to have a seat at the table. Again, we're hopeful we can get a bill introduced. So that's just a couple things. And the last thing I'd say is, as you know, everyone's talking about infrastructure. So we'll see what happens. I would love it if it's a bipartisan product. I would love it if we could really grind it out and have a stable source of funding that is long-term. I don't make that's above my pay grade, so we'll see what happens. I don't know if you're focused on any of those issues, but those are top three that occur to us.
Well, we've been in acquisition mode, now that we're growing and we're just really trying to keep that growth alive. We were looking into one, which was air freight. Air freight right now, less than 10% is being scanned for any type of bomb detection or other things. Well, in June, legislation is supposed to be taking hold where 100%, every single pallet is to be scanned for any type of bomb devices. So when that happens, as those legislations are coming through, and we all know that regulations can change our businesses, especially our small businesses. When that changes, you're that voice for us.
Yeah. What does that do to the supply chain? Is that going to, we're already, as you know, in the midst of the biggest sort of global slowdown in terms of getting freight where it needs to be. So what is that going to do? Is that going to magnify it even more?
Absolutely. And these machines, they're huge and they take a lot of power, and you're going to need more warehouse space. And I don't think the airports really have that space to really handle these large machines that are going to be needed into the future. I don't think government really thought about that either. So is this going to be pushed down the road a little bit more as we go into this or not? So those are things that you guys are really helping out. And the other thing that the TIA really helped me with was to learn how to reach out to my congressmen and senators, right? So, Tammy Duckworth, when she was a congressman, we got to know each other pretty well, got to sit down, talk with her, tell her what my concerns were, taking care of head of household employees and really helping them grow. And then when she became a senator, the same thing. As we get bigger, she gets into a more higher power, if you will, to really help move what we're trying to do moving forward. It doesn't matter if you're Democratic or Republican, really. We're trying to move this nation into the future, into something special, not just for us, but for our children and our children's children. So, and that's something that I think we all can get behind. And
yeah, that's a great point, Jim, too, that the fact that you can talk to your representative, you're sort of driving home what the issue is. So the fact that she's hearing directly from you, you're her constituent, she knows, it sort of keeps her honest in a way. And I'm not, this would be on any member of Congress, because she has to reflect, all right, when a policy comes down the pike, I remember my conversation with Jim Becker. I remember he flagged these couple of issues. Is this piece of legislation going to affect that? Do I need to be concerned at all? Because if his business gets hurt, that's a constituent of mine who gets hurt, right? That's the power of advocacy.
absolutely. And we're all in this together. One last thing, I just want to go to our questions and see if what these things are out there. So this might be a good value add service for us to add to our resources menu. Do you offer a revenue sharing for the industry partners?
We do. We have our TIA Advantage program. Actually, I'm glad you asked about it, because Jessica Mazzell, who handles, she's that in her portfolio, she and Lynn Gravely, who you obviously know, Jim. Lynn is the chair of our TIA Services Board. Mm-hmm. They want to revamp the TIA Advantage program, which is a sort of profit sharing notion of, if there is a benefit that one of our members provides, can they then provide it to all of our membership, and we have a sort of a revenue sharing agreement. And so what we're trying to do is make it so that the ROI for those members who are giving up whatever their service is real, actionable, and tangible. And so Lynn is very excited about this. Jessica is working her heart out on trying to make it happen. I think later in the year, we're going to have an announcement about what that looks like, but we're very focused on making it a value add proposition on both sides of the transaction, the member who's providing the service or the benefit and the member who receives it. So stay tuned for more, but we're working avidly on it.
Yeah, Lynn's great, and Jessica's amazing. So I've got this one question. I think I can handle this one. Is TIA shares sold to the public? If so, what ticker? You guys are a privately held organization, right?
Yes, we are a not-for-profit 501c6 organization, so we do not get traded on the NASDAQ or the New York Stock Exchange.
All right, great. And then what about carrier gouging? Is there a forum through the TIA when we have best practices and then we run into a situation where it's $4,000 a mile? Is there a place, a forum that people can actually have their voice heard, where they can talk about a certain carrier?
Gosh, I'm trying to think if TIA Watchdog is the right forum for that. I mean, let me get back to you on that, because it's either, we also have our various committees that deal with carriers. So I'm trying to think if it's better to have it in the committee form or TIA Watchdog. So I will come back to you, Jim, with a smart answer on that.
Yeah, no problem. And that's, those are the questions that are coming across, and all I'm doing is moving those forward.
Yep.
And you could jump back on here. We would love for you to do that. If you could share, I think we'll put the link out there, but if there's some other links that you would like to share some information about the TIA, please come on back to my post and put that on there. I'll actually share this with you as well.
Oh, I'd love to do that.
If just put maybe some information about the upcoming events that you have going as well. Artificial intelligence, AI, driving, it's coming. It's here, right?
Right. I agree.
How will this impact our industry? That's a great one.
Yeah, I mean, so technology, as I mentioned, it's the best thing and it's the worst thing. It's the best thing because it really does provide our members in a way to attract customers in a more targeted fashion, to provide them benefits that they wouldn't necessarily be able to benefit from. For example, we have a member who has a technology that can translate sort of how the carrier communicates with how the shipper communicates. Because as you know, everyone sort of talks in a different format, right? And so it's essentially a data translator. Now, my God, how much easier is it to do business when you can actually talk to one another across all those three entities? So that's a huge benefit. But it's the worst of things because we fear it. We fear the unknown. We don't know what exactly technology is going to do. Now, I said at the beginning of this, and you agreed with me, that technology will never replace relationships. So technology, I think, will enhance our businesses. I think our members are profoundly entrepreneurial, and so that they will take on whatever technology they think will get them, a benefit and provide help to their customers, but it will never replace relationships. This is a relationship-based industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Our relationship with our customers, with our carriers, with our associations, definitely. And data really helps. And the Internet of Things, has taken off Moore's Law, right? And it'll continue to do that. I just want to thank you and acknowledge you for all that you have done so far and all that you will be doing. We all really do appreciate your leadership and your staff. We appreciate the association and what it stands for. Thank you very much for all of that. And thank you for your time today. Really, you brought a lot of good information of who the TIA is and who you are as a leader yourself.
Well, Jim, thanks for having me. Thanks for plugging our meeting next week, and thanks for participating in it as well. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anytime I can help, I'm here for you. All right.
Thank you.
All right. And for all you, tune in next week. Keep your questions coming. Anne will jump in there and she'll give you feedback back on the information, and connect with her. Let her know that you're out here too and that you'd like to join the TIA as we move forward into the future. Thank you all for being here. We really do appreciate it. And thanks again, Anne.
Thanks, Jim.
Have a great day.
You too.